From our studios in Scottsdale, Arizona, welcome back to Retirement News Online. So taxes don't retire when you do. In fact, they often become one of your biggest controllable expenses. Now, smart advisors help clients reduce lifetime taxes, avoid surprises, and create more efficient income in retirement because, as you probably have guessed, the less we give the government, the more cash flow we have in retirement. Joining me is John Hickman, one of those advisors with High Point Retirement in Ridge Springs, South Carolina. So, welcome. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate being here.
You know, when it comes to tax planning, so I think a lot of people, they work with CPAs, they work with accountants, and they assume that that is tax planning, but that's really tax preparation. And we need them, right? Not
Absolutely,
to prepare the return,
100%.
but they're essentially historians. They're looking in the past. Now, tax planning is actually looking in the future. Do you think people really understand that? And if not, how do you help them?
I don't think that they understand that, Scott. And certainly, you know, actually their tax preparers don't understand that. They're paid to prepare taxes, and they're also paid to defer. Pay the minimum amount of taxes that we can pay today and put the taxes off for the future. But they are not looking at tax strategies. I attend some seminars on tax strategies and work with and get education with Ed Slott, America's IRA expert. Mm-hmm. And Ed has proven that 99%, literally 99% of advisors, CPA and tax preparers are not tax strategists. Preparing taxes is a completely different ballgame than someone looking at strategies based on your specific situation now, but then also looking at where you're going to be in the future, especially in retirement.
Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to tax planning, so when you're young, it's not as important as when you get close to retirement. Now we're starting to take income from qualified accounts. Now we're starting to take Social Security. A lot of things happening as we get close to retire and taking income. Tax planning is really important then, isn't it?
Tax planning, and the key word is tax strategies,
yeah.
Right? We need to look at strategies. And so, you know, it's really important to understand the client's situation and looking forward. And so the first thing that we do in our very first meeting with a client is just, first of all, just basically understand their situation from a high level perspective. And then we just need to take a 10-minute call and understand what is their, what's their situation from the, you know, the future of what that's going to look like, you know, on their income and their taxes and expenses, and also just understanding their goals. So a lot of folks that have these really large retirement accounts, they have a number of concerns. Mm-hmm. You know, they've made it, they've gotten that 7-figure retirement account, and then they start realizing that maybe they have some obstacles or some traps that are in their future, and that's where tax strategies come in.
Okay, and we're talking about tax planning, and so when you think about how do you help coordinate planning, you know, around different income sources? So we've got, you know, pensions, Social Security, you know, real estate, for example.
Absolutely.
That has to all kind of work together, and they all, from a tax perspective, can be very, very different. How do you coordinate all that together?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So once we have that high-level perspective of understanding that client's financial snapshot and goals, so that's just that 10 or 15-minute call. Once we have that data, we have a number of different softwares depending on, you know, the application that we need. When it comes to tax strategies, we have a forecaster software that we use. I also have a case design team that I work with, co-advisors. So once we start data entering that client's information, as you said, are they retired today? What's their target retirement age? What income do they have today? What income are they going to have in retirement? Because that's obviously, you know, going to change. What are those income sources? And typically for most clients, it's going to start with Social Security. We know Social Security doesn't have to be taxed, but then now maybe they have pension income, maybe they have dividend and interest income, capital gain income, rental income. That's what the clients are focused on, and that's what most of their advisors are focused on. Mm-hmm. But what happens next? What happens when we get beyond the pension income, the dividend and interest income, the rental income? What's coming down the road for most of these clients that want to meet with me?
Yeah. And then there's policy, right? So we
Absolutely.
see policy being a risk when it comes to taxes. Tax laws change. They were about to, but they're kind of held off right now. How do you kind of stress test a retirement plan for future, you know, the future possibility of tax law changes?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics right now, Scott, because they were able to extend the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, right? Last year we weren't sure what was going to happen as we enter into this year because it was due to expire. So that's a really strong opportunity that a lot of folks need to take advantage of. Nobody likes to pay taxes, right? We don't like to pay.
Agreed.
We don't like to.
Agreed. Yes.
Some of us are patriots, and I come from a military family.
A certain amount of tax is okay.
A certain amount of tax is okay, but then we see the ridiculous government spending that's going on out there, and we feel like we've paid enough taxes and we're paying enough. But here's the thing, we have to remember, especially when we're entering these years of retirement, if we have a tax trap that's coming down the road, we need to realize that we're in historically low tax brackets right now. And we have a window of opportunity that maybe we can do something in those retirement accounts instead of having them being taxable forever. How about if we can get to tax-free forever? We can take tax-free distributions. We can efficiently pass wealth on to our family. And understanding where we are today in taxes versus where we might be going, that definitely is a discussion we need to have.
Take these steps now because taxes are on sale, as they say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, we complain about taxes, but there's going to be a time where you and I are going to be sitting down and we're like, do you remember the good old days? Do you remember back in 2025 and 26 and 27? Do you remember that we were paying taxes at only the 24% tax bracket? And we were complaining? We're in the good old days right now, Scott, when it comes to taxes
Goldilocks
and managing.
zone.
Yes,
He's
sir.
John Hickman with High Point Retirement in Ridge Springs, South Carolina. This is Retirement News Online, and you can check us out at retirementnewsonline.com. Thanks for watching.